Throughout history, all the great saints have faced deep doubts about their faith. Have you ever experienced this darkness? What fascinates the public imagination is how such a small person could have such a big impact on the world. When we think of compassion and altruism, Mother Teresa's name immediately springs to mind. I'd like you to type in the city you're watching me from in the comments. Let's form a family. First point, Mother Teresa was always busy, literally saving lives. She founded an organization called the Missionaries of Charity. But was she really as perfect as many believed? She will be remembered as Saint Teresa of Calcutta by the Catholic Church. Her entire life was dedicated to caring for the sick and the poor. She was a controversial figure, known for her deep spirituality. Until the day of her death on September 5, 1997, her spirituality was closely linked to Jesus on the cross, living in pain and suffering. Although she kept no secrets, many revelations about her were only revisited after her death, shocking the world. No one knew about her sense of isolation. A letter she wrote documents the loneliness she endured for 6 decades, and inner turmoil. On December 11, 1979, the world witnessed a unique scene in Oslo. Mother Teresa, in her blue embroidered sari, received the Nobel Peace Prize. I now invite Mother Teresa to receive the diploma and the gold medal. This is how the world thanked her for her unwavering dedication to the poor and needy. In her acceptance speech, she spoke about her life's mission and the need to love your neighbor as yourself, evoking Christ's sacrifice on the cross. At that time, she preached compassion and highlighted social problems such as abortion and drug addiction. During the celebration of Christmas, as a beacon of hope and joy, these were all issues that people had always heard about. But if they thought they knew the whole truth about Mother Teresa, they were mistaken. Nobody knew that, behind her serenity, there was a deep spiritual anguish. Second point, in a private letter to Reverend Michael Vayner Pitt, recently revealed, Mother Teresa confessed her inner torment. But why did she feel this way? In the letter, Mother Teresa revealed a great contradiction in her perception of Christ, alternating between expressions of unshakable faith and an inner spiritual desolation. She said that Christ had a special love for others, but left her in silence to face an emptiness that wouldn't go away. It was clear that Mother Teresa was experiencing deep existential confusion. Just 11 weeks after sending that letter, she was on stage wearing a mask of happiness as she gave her acceptance speech. This contrast between her public appearance and her private anguish was clear proof of her contradiction. Mother Teresa was one of the most revered figures of the 20th century and, after the revelation of this intimate letter, the world began to question its perception of her all this time. Although she appeared outwardly serene in her silent prayers, presented by colleagues and television cameras alike, her letters revealed a hidden reality of spiritual desolation, where the divine presence seemed to have disappeared. But it wasn't just one letter. Soon, the whole truth came out in front of the world. But to see the whole picture, you have to delve into Mother Teresa's life from the beginning. After her death in September 1997, the world was shocked by the news of Mother Teresa's passing. After she breathed her last within the confines of the headquarters of her Missionaries of Charity in Calcutta, this came after several years of deteriorating health, which included lung, heart and kidney problems. In the end, Mother Teresa died of a heart attack. Known affectionately as the Saint of Sewage Pipes, she was surrounded by her sisters in her final moments, all wearing the white and blue saris of her order. According to the account of her closest confidant, Sunita Kumar, Mother Teresa uttered the words "I can't breathe" before she passed away. "We have just heard that Mother Teresa has died," said Sister Nirmala, her successor at the head of the Missionaries of Charity, announcing the news to the world, saying that her beloved foundress had suddenly gone to be with Jesus. The profound impact of her death resonated in all nations, generating tributes from dignitaries such as Pope John Paul II and President Clinton, who hailed her as a beacon of love and compassion. Before we go any further, listen to this message that could save your life. Excess sugar in the blood can lead to a number of serious health complications. Diabetes significantly increases the risk of heart disease, including heart attacks. High blood glucose levels can damage blood vessels, increasing the risk of strokes. In other words, at any time you could suffer a massive heart attack or stroke. At that point, if you have any type of diabetes, your life is at great risk. If you want to eliminate blood sugar naturally, click on the link in the first fixed comment and watch the video that could change your life. Watch it now, before it goes off air. Despite the praise she received, it was on the streets of Calcutta, her spiritual home, where Mother Teresa's legacy truly flourished, embodying a selfless devotion that went beyond ordinary religious divisions in a predominantly Hindu nation. If Diana was the Queen of Hearts, Mother Teresa was the Queen of the poor and of humanity. While India slept unaware of the loss it had suffered, the news of her death awakened a deep sense of grief and reverence among those who revered her as a symbol of unbreakable goodness. But during her lifetime, while Mother Teresa was out in the world helping those she could and always taking a positive view of everything, there was a parallel battle she was waging with herself. Not a single soul knew what she was going through, and the truth was only revisited after her death. Number 3, an exorcism. On the 4th anniversary of Mother Teresa's death, a surprising revelation came to light when Archbishop Henry de Souza revealed that, a few months before her death, she had undergone an exorcism. This was done because it was suspected that she was under some kind of demonic oppression. The incident occurred in November 1996, during her stay at Calcutta's Birla Hospital, where she spent 2 sleepless nights, prompting Archbishop de Souza to intervene. She had been hospitalized for an angioplasty and was fully aware of the exorcism that was about to take place. Once she had given her consent, the Archbishop sought help and summoned Father Rosario Straccio, who performed a 30-minute exorcism prayer over the troubled nun. Father Straccio prayed, according to the Archbishop's account, pointing out Mother Teresa's unusual behavior before the exorcism and emphasizing the prevalence of such spiritual interventions in Catholicism, underlining the enduring spiritual battles that have faced saints throughout history. Surprisingly, the effects were immediate. Mother Teresa experienced renewed tranquility and rest after the ritual. Archbishop de Souza attributed her susceptibility to such spiritual attacks to her profound holiness, suggesting that even saints like her could fall prey to malevolent forces. But there could be another reason for this exorcism performed on Mother Teresa. Let's go to the other side of the story. In 2003, a compilation was published, a book entitled Mother Teresa, Come Be My Light, which was essentially a compilation of her intimate correspondence. But here's the rub: these correspondences covered a period of 6 decades and all exposed a hidden truth. For almost 50 years, Mother Teresa had been struggling with a deep spiritual desolation, an emptiness that remained despite her tireless acts of charity. Curiously, these letters were preserved against Mother Teresa's wishes. She had wanted all these letters to be destroyed and for the world never to read them. But this was overruled by the Church. On the outside, Mother Teresa was a cheerful woman and no one could tell that anything was wrong with her. But on the inside, she had a deep sense of spiritual agony, and in her letters, she had compared her interior to hell itself. In more than 40 letters, she spoke of how much her spiritual dryness bothered her, even questioning the very existence of God, as she struggled with the gap that was forming between her public facade and her inner anguish. But how exactly did this compilation come about? Number 4. The revelations contained in Come Be My Light did not emerge from the investigation of a skeptical researcher, but from the hands of Reverend Brian Kolodiajuk, a high-ranking member of the Missionaries of Charity and Mother Teresa's own postulator, charged with defending her path to sainthood. All these letters together tell Mother Teresa's story through a lens never seen before. How did it all begin? On September 10, 1946, Mother Teresa had already dedicated 17 years of her life to teaching in Calcutta with the Sisters of Loreto, and this was the point where her transformative journey began. She was exhausted and ill, so she undertook a 400-mile train journey to Darjeeling for her annual retreat on the slopes of the Himalayas. It was during this journey that she claimed to have experienced a divine encounter. The exact prayer dialogue was recounted to Archbishop Ferdinand Purrier in January 1947, and in it Jesus implored Mother Teresa with urgency, questioning her resolve and challenging her to embrace her call with devotion. He spoke of his desire for Indian nuns and missionaries of charity to incarnate his love among the impoverished and marginalized. Jesus confronted Teresa with her perceived inadequacies, emphasizing her weakness and sinfulness as qualities destined for divine purpose. In response, Teresa gave herself humbly to Jesus, recognizing her own limitations and placing all her trust in his will. Despite her doubts and insecurities, she expressed her willingness to be used as a vessel for God's glory, even if it meant taking on unfamiliar and challenging roles. In essence, Christ had just asked her to leave teaching and instead immerse herself in the terrible conditions of the slums of Calcutta, where the poorest of the poor were suffering right and left. With absolute conviction, he took this call very seriously and envisioned a mission that went beyond mere humanitarian aid to encompass a spiritual awakening among the destitute. Despite initial skepticism from local authorities, including Archbishop Ferdinand Purrier, Mother Teresa's relentless determination and unbreakable faith in her divine mission made her persist. Employing a combination of strategic persuasion and spiritual fervor, she circumvented bureaucratic obstacles and sought approval for her radical mission through prayer and dialogue with Christ. She sought validation for her calling throughout this time. She experienced mystical visions that affirmed her chosen path, which helped her to move forward. Mother Teresa's spiritual journey included experiencing visions and even an encounter with Christ on the cross. This was told by her confessor, Father Celeste van Exem, who testified to the authenticity of her mystical experiences. Reflecting on her profound union with Jesus, Father van Exem emphasized the intensity of her connection, suggesting that her communion with the divine transcended earthly limits. Teresa herself later expressed the depth of this encounter in simple but profound words, acknowledging the gift of Jesus' presence in her life. Finally, on January 6, 1948, after consulting the Vatican, Archbishop Purrier granted Mother Teresa the long-awaited permission to begin her sacred mission. However, even as she embarked on this new calling, she struggled with the recurring absence of Christ, an emptiness that persisted despite her unwavering devotion. In the early months of 1948, Teresa underwent a rudimentary medical course before officially beginning her solitary mission on the streets of Calcutta. Despite the challenges, she felt an inner peace and fulfillment that could not be compared to anything else. He felt he was exactly where he needed to be. Number 5. A normal day of service for Mother Teresa looked like this. She would meet destitute people on the brink of death and offer them what little help she could muster, while surrounded by the grim realities of urban poverty. In an account of her first day on the job, Mother Teresa shared the story of her encounter with an elderly man abandoned and sick on the streets, to whom she offered consolation in the form of charcoal and water, earning his unexpected gratitude. Venturing into the Tautala Bazaar, she came across a destitute woman on the verge of starvation who was suffering from tuberculosis. Mother Teresa offered her all the help she could in the hope of alleviating her suffering, although the outcome remained uncertain. Just 2 months later, in the midst of the triumph of securing the headquarters for her growing mission, signs of anguish emerged in her correspondence with Puryear. Despite her outward success, Teresa felt alone and struggled against an insurmountable sense of darkness that invaded her being. Seeking consolation and guidance, she turned to Puryear and begged him to pray away the feelings of desolation and doubt that haunted her spirit. Puryear's assurances were insufficient in the face of Teresa's inner turmoil, as she struggled to reconcile her unwavering devotion with the absence of tangible signs of the divine presence. Her inability to articulate her innermost struggles compounded her anguish, leaving her isolated in her suffering. Desperate to find relief from the relentless onslaught of doubt and despair, Teresa asked Puryear for prayers to sustain her faltering faith and maintain her facade of unwavering devotion in the face of deep spiritual desolation. While at the height of her spiritual turmoil, she received advice from a confessor and wrote a heartfelt plea, delving into the darkest implications of her theological crisis. This letter, which opens this chapter of his journey, with another from 1959, questioning the very essence of faith, paints a clear picture of his unstable belief in God. In this plea, he spoke of struggling with feelings of abandonment and despair. He struggled with the sense of isolation and emptiness that had enveloped his soul. In her desperate plea to God, she questioned the very foundations of her faith, facing the agonizing silence and darkness that permeated her existence. Torn between her desire for divine connection and the crushing weight of doubt, Teresa exposed her inner confusion at the apparent absence of God's presence in her life. Faced with the relentless onslaught of doubt and uncertainty, she dared to express her innermost fears and uncertainties, trembling at the thought of blasphemy, but unable to repress the incessant questions that tormented her soul. She was the first to take Jesus as the Lord's slave. The moment Jesus entered her life, she wanted to be forgiven and to be close to Jesus, hoping that this supplication would help her make things better. "I believe what you say, Father. A family that prays together stays together. And if they remain united, they naturally love each other." But the more his mission flourished, the deeper his spiritual desolation became. In a letter to Puryear in March 1953, he exposed his soul and spoke of how much he hated the darkness that had surrounded his whole being since he began his work. Puryear sent her a reassuring reply, but it failed to alleviate her growing despair as she struggled with the absence of the divine presence, despite her tireless devotion. Teresa's struggle to reconcile her desire for God with the apparent rejection she was experiencing remained a closely guarded secret to the rest of the world, but soon manifested itself in a sense of alienation and spiritual emptiness. Her desperate pleas for peace and guidance can be seen through her correspondence, but all they did was reveal a soul tormented by doubt and longing for a connection that always seemed elusive. While her flourishing missionaries of charity attracted worldwide attention, Teresa's internal struggles continued to evolve through a succession of confessors, which is similar to the transition of patients between psychoanalysts. From Van Exem to Puryear and later to Cardinal Lawrence Pickeke, followed by Reverend Joseph Nooner, her mentors saw with their own eyes her descent into what she called her darkness, portraying Jesus as absent during her anguish. Number 6. A ray of hope appeared with the death of Pope Pius XII in 1958, when Requiem Masses resounded throughout the world. Seeking the late pontiff's validation for her work, Teresa felt a brief sense of relief, basking in the light that momentarily gave her respite from her decade-long torment. But this relief proved to be temporary, as the darkness quickly took hold of her once again and, once it returned, it persisted. Her eventual acceptance came in an exchange she had with Nooner around 1961. Mother Teresa thanked him for his guidance and recognized a new acceptance of the darkness she had endured for so long. Unlike conventional responses to trauma, Teresa now accepted her suffering, seeing it as a small reflection of Christ's own agony on earth. Neuner's wise counsel was based on three main points. Firstly, he told Mother Teresa that there was no human cure for what she was going through. Secondly, he made her understand that feeling Jesus' presence was not the only way to know that he was there. Finally, he said that the fact that she longed for his presence meant that he was already present in her life, even if he was hidden from her. This freed Teresa from the chains of her despair, affirming that her longing for God had a reason. This revelation gave Teresa a sense of purpose, transforming her anguish into a testimony of faith and strength. Despite moments of persistent torment, she found solace in the idea that her spiritual struggle reflected Christ's own trial on the cross. Her suffering took on a profound meaning. Grateful for Neuner's instrumental role in her spiritual journey, Teresa expressed a new affection for the darkness that had consumed her soul for so long. Although her anguish persisted, she decided to embrace God's will, even in the absence of tangible consolation. Over time, Teresa's acceptance of her spiritual desolation became a cornerstone of her identity, guiding her firm commitment to serving the marginalized. Even 5 years after receiving the Nobel Prize, on an occasion when everyone together could proclaim the joy of spreading peace, a Jesuit priest recalled her enduring struggle, emphasizing that her agonizing spiritual night was not a passing phase, but a constant situation. References to his spiritual dryness in a 1995 letter predicted his eventual death in 1997. This compilation of letters, meticulously assembled as part of her canonization process, was intended to reveal a very private struggle that lurked beneath the surface of her saintly facade. It is important to understand that this book was not compiled to punish or criticize Mother Teresa. The Church fully recognizes the phenomenon of spiritual desolation, comparing it to the dark night of the soul experienced by mystics such as Saint John of the Cross. Mother Teresa's situation was an example of how faith can be tested to its limits. What can be learned from this is that, despite enduring decades of spiritual aridity, she remained firm in her faith and unwavering in her mission to serve the poor. In fact, Reverend Claudia Juck sees her dedication, in the face of such internal turmoil, as her most remarkable feat of spiritual heroism. In the story of Teresa's spiritual journey, a perplexing question arises: why did her communion with Jesus, once so vivid and sustaining, abruptly disappear as soon as the mission of the missionaries of charity became real? Curiously, both secular and religious interpretations initially follow parallel paths, recognizing the centrality of Catholic spirituality's identification with Christ's enduring suffering on the cross, which is considered essential for redemption. Teresa herself emphasized this connection, stating that physical indigence fostered empathy with the poor and deepened her bond with Christ's agonizing sacrifice. However, when she began her mission, her spiritual wellspring seemed to dry up unexpectedly, leaving her dry and bewildered. Claudia Juck suggests a divine purpose in this defection, crediting Teresa's need to purify herself against pride, which was proof of her indomitable spirit. Despite her triumphs, evidenced by her overcoming of institutional obstacles and her fulfillment of Jesus' call, Teresa's internal panorama remained full of conflicts. Number 8. Dr. Richard Gottlieb, delving into the psychological complexities, speculated on the self-imposed nature of her abandonment, a consequence of her incessant search for humility and her fear of taking credit for her achievements. She compared her difficult situation to that of an executive who makes a social mistake at the peak of his career. For Teresa, every victory seemed to come at a price of misery, a paradoxical burden that she bore in her quest for divine approval. Furthermore, Gottlieb suggests that the fact that Teresa took an active role in her ministry could have unsettled her, provoking a return to the familiar role of faithful but abandoned lover. In the atheist camp, Hitchens offers a crude explanation, postulating that Teresa experienced a moment of awakening in 1948, similar to the disillusionment among fervent communists. This view, however, meets with resistance in religious circles that reject attributing Teresa's suffering to a self-imposed misery. Martin, presenting an alternative perspective, portrays Teresa as a wife who is steadfast and unwavering in her devotion, despite the apparent silence of her beloved. In this analogy, Teresa's dedication to remission, similar to a wife's care for a comatose husband, is an act of profound love and fidelity. But regardless of which analogy we believe, Mother Teresa's letters paint a picture of complete spiritual agony, finally revealed to the world after her death. Why do you think Mother Teresa felt this way?